Ah, look at you. Look at the ghost in the machine. Look at the one who should be dead, buried beneath the weight of an industry that demands perfection and feeds on compromise. They gave you the invitation, didn't they? The gilded letter that promised you everything: fame, fortune, eternal spotlight. If you would only kneel. If you would only agree to trade your soul for a seat at their contaminated, poisoned table. They gave you the ultimate choice. Join us and be a star, or walk into the wilderness and be nothing. And everyone, absolutely everyone, expected you to fold, to weep, to beg for their approval. They didn't understand the ancient fire that burned in your gut. They couldn't compute the simple, terrifying truth. You chose the wilderness. You chose isolation over integration, authenticity over acceptance, and truth over the tribe that was ready to cannibalize you the moment you became inconvenient. They circled you like vultures, smiling with teeth that looked exactly like prison bars. Be one of us, they whispered, or be no one at all. They guaranteed your collapse without their validation, their network, their hollow version of belonging. Oh, how they laughed when you walked away. They placed bets on how long you'd last. They whispered about your inevitable, pathetic return, crawling back for the scraps of community they denied you. The world was certain that without the spotlight, you would simply cease to exist. But something shifted the moment you walked through that door. Time moves differently when you are building an empire in exile. Every sunrise, you woke up alone, but never lonely. Every night, you went to bed without their praise, but with something they would never possess. Peace. Real, uncontaminated, uncompromised peace that comes from never having sold your spirit for a false sense of security. You learned to be your own ecosystem, your own friend, your own tribe of one. While they huddled together for warmth, you learned to generate your own fire. While they validated each other's lies, you validated your own truth. You were building your house on bedrock, while their entire structure was erected on mutual deception. The silence of that first year, admittedly, was so loud it could crack glass. The absence of their voices made you question if you even existed. Rumors suggest the system tried to force your hand, sending messengers and legal threats, banking on your fear of being forgotten. Some nights, you'd find yourself reaching for your phone, almost ready to apologize for choosing yourself. But then you'd remember the joy in their eyes at the thought of your submission, the sheer smug certainty of your failure. And you'd put the phone down. You'd choose the silence again, the solitude again, because you finally understood. Being alone with your truth is infinitely better than being surrounded by people who need you weak to feel strong. Being friendless with integrity beats having 1,000 collaborators who would sell you for a moment of relevance or a new contract. Here is what their small minds simply couldn't compute. Isolation didn't kill you, it purified you. Every day without them was another layer of toxic programming deleted. Every moment of solitude was a moment of fierce reconstruction, rebuilding yourself from the atomic level up. You stopped needing external validation because you became your own damn source. You stopped craving their acceptance because you finally accepted yourself. All of it. The fire they told you to dim, the shadows they made you hide, the wildness they desperately tried to domesticate, all of it came roaring back to life in the absence of their suffocating, controlling presence. You remember the moment it clicked, don't you? That realization that you weren't dying alone. You were being born alone. The solitude wasn't punishment. It was the cocoon, And inside that cocoon, away from their toxic gaze, away from their limiting beliefs, away from their small dreams and smaller hearts, you were becoming something they could never be. Authentic. They needed the group consensus to tell them who they were. You discovered who you were in the echo of your own heartbeat. They needed approval to take action. You learned to move like lightning with no one's permission but your own. And then something shifted in the universe. Slowly at first, like tectonic plates grinding beneath the surface. But you felt the change. That subtle electricity in the air when your name came up in conversations you weren't part of. That nervous energy when someone accidentally mentioned seeing you thriving. Because while you were busy becoming undeniable in your solitude, they were busy dying in their togetherness. Reports claim a quiet, constant infighting in the old machine. Financial stresses disguised by lavish public displays. They won't admit it. They'll post their group photos with their frozen, desperate smiles, broadcasting their fake unity. But behind closed doors, when the cameras are off and the masks slip, they are eating each other alive. They never understood the ultimatum. Join us or die alone was never really about you. It was about them. It was their own fear projected outward. Their terror of being alone with themselves made manifest. They needed you to join them because they needed the validation that their choice to surrender was the right one. Your thriving in isolation exposed the lie they built their entire existence on. Your peace in solitude revealed that their community was just a support group for people too afraid to support themselves. Your growth without them showed that they were never growing with each other, just shrinking to fit the same gilded cage. Watch them now. Really watch them, not with anger, but with the detached curiosity of a scientist observing an experiment in controlled decay. Watch how they turn on each other when the pressure builds. Watch how quickly their loyalty evaporates when personal gain or an accusation surfaces. Watch how their manufactured friendship crumbles the moment someone questions the collective group think. They are dying. Not physically, though some look more corpse-like every year. They are dying spiritually, emotionally, dying from the cognitive dissonance of pretending to be happy while watching you. The chosen exile radiate a joy they cannot manufacture. No matter how many of them gather together, every achievement you unlock alone is a dagger in their collective ego. Every milestone you reach without their support is proof that their support was never necessary. They're realizing, slowly but surely, that they didn't save themselves by sticking together. They just agreed to drown in company. And the sickest part, they can't leave now. They've invested too much, compromised too much, integrated their identities so deeply with the group that leaving would mean admitting they were wrong, admitting that you, the one they laughed at, the one they said would damn themselves alone, you were right all along, and that admission would kill them faster than any solitude ever could. Let's talk about why you truly have no friends. Not because you're unlikable. You have no friends. Because friendship, as they define it, is a contract you refuse to sign. It's an agreement to mutual limitation, dressed up as mutual support. Their version of connection requires you to shrink when your growth makes them uncomfortable. It demands you dim your light when your brilliance exposes their darkness. It insists you apologize for your gifts to maintain the illusion of equality. You refuse to engage in emotional welfare. You won't pretend to be broken so they feel useful. You won't manufacture problems for them to solve, so they feel valuable. You won't play small so they can feel big by comparison. The Chosen One has no friends, because the Chosen One doesn't need a committee to confirm their choices, doesn't need a panel to approve their path, doesn't need a jury to validate their journey. The Chosen One moves by internal compass, not external consensus. And that kind of self-sovereignty is terrifying to people who've outsourced their decision-making to the group. But here's the secret they'll never understand. Your solitude is not empty. It's full, fuller than their gatherings will ever be. In your aloneness, you are accompanied by every version of yourself you've ever been, and every version you're becoming. You're surrounded by your dreams, your visions, your raw potential, all of which have room to breathe and grow without their suffocating doubt. You download insights from frequencies they can't access through their group static. Your friendlessness is not a poverty, it's a wealth they can't calculate. Every group you're not part of is a drama you're not drowning in. Every friend you don't have is a betrayal you'll never experience. A knife you'll never have to pull from your back. You chose quality over quantity, depth over surface, truth over comfort. And yes, that means you often walk alone, but you walk with purpose, with power, with a kind of peace that comes from never having to wonder if the people around you are real or just performing. You know exactly where you stand, because you're standing on ground you chose, not ground you were assigned. Now watch what happens next. Watch as one by one they start to crack. The smart ones first. The ones who always suspected something was off but couldn't quite name it. Watch them start to question the group. Watch them start to pull back. Watch them start to look at your solitude, not with pity, but with envy. They are beginning to see the prison bars, beginning to taste the poison in the Kool-Aid, beginning to feel the weight of all the compromises they made to belong. It's been said that quietly, some of the most influential contacts are reaching out to you privately, testing the waters. How did you do it? They'll ask. How did you choose to be alone? And you'll want to tell them it wasn't about choosing to be alone. It was about choosing to be real. But they aren't ready for that truth yet. They are still too invested in the lie. Others will double down. They'll grip their group identity tighter, speak louder about their unity, post more aggressively about their unbreakable bond. But it's desperate now, performative, like actors who know the show is ending but refuse to leave the stage. They'll hate you harder for being the proof of what they could have been if they had the courage to choose themselves. The ultimatum has completely reversed, hasn't it? They said, join us or die alone. But look who's dying now. They're dying of conformity, dying of compromise, dying of the slow suffocation that comes from never being allowed to be themselves. They're dying in groups, in pairs, in carefully orchestrated social formations that look like connection, but feel exactly like cages. And you are more alive than you have ever been. Every day alone is a day you are fully yourself. Every night without them is a night you sleep in peace. Every moment of solitude is a moment of pure, undiluted existence. You're not dying alone. You're living alone, and there's a profound difference they'll never understand from inside their crowded coffin. They thought isolation would be your punishment. It became your power. They thought friendlessness would be your weakness. It became your strength. They thought choosing solitude over their society would be your biggest mistake. It became your greatest victory because you learned the ultimate truth. It's better to stand alone in your truth than to lay down with lies for company. The ones who said you'd die alone are now dying together, slowly, painfully, surrounded by people who don't really know them because they never really knew themselves. So here you sit, on your throne of chosen solitude, not because you hate people, but because you love yourself too much to pretend anymore. Not because you're antisocial, but because you're pro-authenticity. Your friendlessness is not a failure. It's a filter. It filters out everyone who needs you to be less, so they can feel like more. It filters out everyone who requires your submission to feel powerful. And what's left? Nothing but space. Beautiful, infinite space for you to become everything you were meant to be. They still talk about you in hushed tones, now with a mixture of resentment and awe. They check on you from a distance, watching your evolution with the fascination of people watching a miracle. You became the ghost story they tell to keep others in line. Don't be like them, they warn. They chose to be alone, but some hear that warning, and it sounds exactly like freedom. The exodus has begun. Others are quietly making the same choice, not because you recruited them. You don't need followers, but because your example gave them permission to choose themselves, too. They are leaving the groups now, choosing their own exile, choosing their own solitude, choosing to die to the false self rather than live as a false friend. Their numbers are dwindling. Their power is fading. Their illusion is cracking. The secret is out. Dying alone is not the worst fate. Living as a lie, surrounded by liars, is. You chose to die alone rather than live as a lie. But here's the final plot twist. You're not dying. You're more alive than you've ever been. More real, more powerful, because you discovered the ultimate paradox. The person who needs no one becomes the person everyone needs. Not because you're performing, but because in a world full of people terrified of being alone, the person who chose solitude and thrived becomes a beacon of possibility. You chose, and that choice rewrote the rules of the game. It revealed that the game itself was optional, that the players were prisoners, and that the prize was actually a punishment. The friendless chosen one is not a sad story of isolation. It's a triumphant tale of liberation. It's the story of someone who refused to pay the price of belonging when the price was their authenticity. Your friendlessness is your crown. Your solitude is your scepter. Your isolation is your throne. And from that throne, you watch as their world, built on mutual neediness and false loyalty, slowly crumbles. They thought they were giving you an ultimatum. They were really revealing their own death sentence. You chose life alone, yes, but free. You stand as proof that one person aligned with their truth is more powerful than a million aligned with a lie. That one soul choosing authenticity outweighs 1,000 choosing to belong. You chose, and that choice made all the difference. Not just for you, but for everyone still watching from their cages, wondering if maybe, just maybe, they could choose too.